Good morning to all of you, and thank you for joining us this morning in this webinar. The webinar title today is Advancing the Future of Transport in Europe, and this is part of the moving up to the TRA 2022, which will take place in Lisbon next November, as you know. TRA is really the largest European research and technology conference when it comes to transport and mobility. It covers all transport modes and all aspects of mobility. It is a great opportunity for all the stakeholders getting together to discuss research, discuss projects, discuss patterns, new patterns, here listening to the achievements that have been done, the achievements of industry in this particular case also, and learn from each other. The development of innovation solutions is really essential to advance the future of transport and mobility in Europe towards a more efficient, safer, carbon-free, inclusive, and sustainable in all its modes. Industry is part of the solution, and it largely contributes to the European economy. And I'm talking about transport industry, be it manufacturers, be it logistics, be it infrastructures. It is really part of the solution. Attendance in Portugal will always, in Lisbon, will always get to know, will get acquainted with Portugal's vast transport network and how Lisbon is becoming a European best in class or good in class of sustainable mobility and urban life. And then, of course, attendees will also enjoy all the good things that Lisbon has to offer to its visitors. Okay, now the conference theme is moving together, reimagining mobility systems. The transport industry, as all the other economic areas, is facing the challenges of the twin transition, green transition, digital transition. And the sector touches a vast array of issues: climate change, energy, materials, technology, equipment, logistics, air, water, human factor, demographics, and many more. So it takes really reimagining the mobility sector to address all those issues, individually and as a whole. But as those challenges are global, nobody can achieve them on its own. This is why we move together. That's the basis, the two bases of the conference and of the title that you chose for this conference. This is what TRA 2022 is about. Cooperation is the name of the game. We'll be talking more about it. So TRA 22 is organized and hosted by ANI, which is the Portuguese National Innovation Agency, by MIT, Institute for Mobility and Transport, by CEE, the Engineering Schools Consortium, National Laboratory of Civil Engineer, LNEC, the NEC, by Magellan, and by the way, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Teresa Presas, and I am from Magellan. So Magellan is also a organizer of this large event, and then it is supported by 8 technology and research entities that have always been supporting the organizers. 6 technology platforms: ERTRAC, ERTRAC, Waterborne, ALICE, ECTP, and ACAR, and 2 associations, ETRA and CEDR. Okay, so as said, TRA 2022 will cover a vast and important agenda. Today, we will dedicate our conversation to the transport industry, supported by research and innovation. So we, in our screens, we have the participants of today, starting from Luís Maia, and Luís is from the Portuguese National Innovation Agency, and he is a senior consultant, and Ani, as I said, is the main organizer of TRA2022. And Luís will present some practical aspects of the event, namely the exhibition plan. Then we will have Zissis, Professor Zissis Samaras from ERTRAC. He is the Vice Chairman of the European Road Transport Research Advisory Council. We will then have Steve Phillips, Secretary General of CEDR, the Confederation of European Directors of Roads, and then Armando Carrillo, Secretary General of ETRA, and other organizations that he will tell us about. And last but not least, Fernando Liesa, Secretary General of ALICE, the European Technology Platform to set out to develop a comprehensive strategy for research, innovation, market deployment of logistics, and supply chain management innovation. So I will ask each participant to give a short presentation, but I will start with Luís Maia, who will, as I said, give us a broad view on more practical aspects of TRA22. Luís, hello, good morning, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Good morning to all. I hope you're hearing me well. Well, I was already presented. My name is Luís Maia. I'm part of the Portuguese National Innovation Agency, ANI, and now I'm going to do a very brief presentation with some news about the exhibition. I'm going to just give you a brief overview of the venue and the exhibition guidelines that should be published very, very soon. I'm going to show my screen. Okay, are you seeing my screen already? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to put in presenting mode. So what do we have here? Okay, so as you all know, I think most of you watching right now, you probably know, the TRA2022 will take place in Lisbon from the 14th to the 17th of November 2022. So we are like 7 months away, a bit less. And it will be held in the Centro de Congresso Lisboa, the Lisbon Congress Center, which is a very nice venue in the city proper, not far away from downtown and by the river. It's actually a very nice setting. And in a way, we're also fortunate enough to be close to different transport modes, namely a rail line that passes right next to the conference venue. We have the river also, and of course, roads. This venue was chosen mostly because, well, as you know, we've been highly impacted. The organization of this conference was highly impacted by the pandemic. Originally, it was supposed to take place in April or May, but then in last year, we decided it was better to postpone at least for 6 months because we were getting already delayed. And we wanted this extra 6 months to hopefully to get things clearer and the pandemic under control. And for now, things are looking up. So hopefully, we'll in November, the pandemic will not be a big issue. And so we expect to have a significant number of participants. In the TRA2018, the last one to be held, there were close to more than 3,000 participants. In our edition, now we're pointing maybe to 2,000 participants, but we don't know yet because, as you know, it's hard to predict with the impact of the pandemic, and also because we want to make it a hybrid event, giving the possibility of watching online, at least to some of the sessions, the main sessions, that is not completely set yet. But, well, the reality is different, so we cannot be sure how many people we're going to have. In any case, the venue in itself is very flexible, so it will allow us to manage 2,000, but if needed, we can manage 3,000 or more. So this is an image of the venue, and you see, well, this is close to Lisbon, but you see the river, the Tagus River on the left, which is very, very wide, and you see maybe you can see a small rail line there. So in terms of transport, it's actually kind of well represented with different transport modes. There's a tram line next to it also, so that's it's a good venue with a good location. Now, looking at the new, this was already known, it's published on the website, but now I'll give you something new, which is the exhibition. As you know, the exhibition was not yet open. It's about to open. I believe it's not yet on the website, but it's going to be very, very soon. And here I'm just going to give you some general information about what to expect regarding the exhibition. So in very, very general terms, we have up to close to 7,000 square meters that are available for exhibition. They can all be used or not, but there are different pavilions and they can be adapted and used according to the needs. And the idea is that we're going to divide the exhibition space in 3 areas, okay? We have the Portugal corner, and the idea on the Portugal corner is to have a place where we put together all the Portuguese participants. Given that the event is going to take place in Portugal, it is expected that a significant part of the exhibitors will be from Portuguese companies, and this idea is to give a more to concentrate them in a place with a special attention, and that's the idea of the Portugal corner. Then we have the general exhibition area, the big parts, and we can have, of course, bigger stands, some islands for like some major players like the ETPs, European Technological Platforms, or the European Commission, etc. And then we have the demonstration area. As probably most of you know, there's a call for demonstrations that is open. I'm going to speak a bit about that in the end of the presentation. And if you want to do a small demonstration with a small vehicle going around or something like that, you can have it. That there's a space in the venue, an area in the venue that is dedicated to that, and you can have your stand in that area, in the demonstration area. Well, this is a floor plan that I'm not going to get into big details, but you can see on the scale is not the same. On the top you have the ground floor where you have most of the area, and on the bottom left corner, this orange part is the exhibition area that is outside. Then you have a pink one, the exhibition area inside, and then you have stands. And on the first floor, we have further space, if needed, where you can have more stands. Now, going to what is most relevant to potential participants, prices and the types of stands that we're selling. Well, the idea is to sell 3 types of stands. Or you can just sell the area, of course, and you build your own stands. In terms of stands that are already built, we have the shell scheme type 1, the more common stand. You see like the white one with the different prices. So the idea is that we're going to have an early bird fee until the 20th of July, and after that until the 20th of October we'll have the regular fee. So there's a small discount for the early bird. And you see the prices here on the screen. You have the regular stand. Then we have a bigger stand that is only going to be available for the Portugal corner, for Portuguese entities, that we call the Portugal corner stand, which is more expensive. And then you have what we call the startup stand, a smaller stand, cheaper. That's also a possibility for smaller companies, startups, etc. And then, of course, you see on the bottom, you can just rent the space and build your own stand as big as you want, as different as you want. If you want to build something big, like a big island for the organization or association, etc. So this gives you an idea of the prices, and the prices are more appealing than in the previous TRAs. I remember I was in TRA2018, which is an excellent conference, but the prices of the exhibition were higher. So we're going for lower prices, and we hope that this can attract more stakeholders, more companies, more associations to be in the exhibition, because we consider this to be a very interesting opportunity to show your company. Just to give you an idea of what are the possibilities. Well, the shell scheme stands are available in packages of 9 square meter, 18, 27, or 36. And for the smaller ones, the startup stands, they are available in packages of 4, 8, and 12 square meters. And then, of course, again, you can just buy the area and do as you please. And the deadlines, as I mentioned before, we have the early bird until the 20th of July with a small discount, and then regular fee up to the 20th of October. And this gives you an overview. Again, soon we're going to put all this information and an exhibition guideline on the website, and we're going to open the registration tool that you can access in the website. Now, at the same time, and since almost maybe a month ago, we have a call for demonstrations, kind of a call for expression of interest till the end of March, and in which you have, it's the first stage for you to present your idea of your potential demonstration. And what are the areas that we have available for these demonstrations? We have around 700 square meters of indoor area and around 1,000 square meters outdoor. So you can have, kind of demonstrators that are not huge, but still there's some space for some vehicles to go around, etc. Of course, again, we're discussing, this is the space that we have inside the venue. If you would like to do something bigger, for example, something involving rail, there may be a possibility. This would have to be negotiated in a case-by-case basis. We have like a rail siding, like 100 meters away from the venue, which is actually part of it's a siding for the Port of Lisbon, which I believe is not used very frequently. So perhaps there is going to be a possibility, if you would like to demonstrate rail, to do something there, or eventually in the river, which is also very close. Again, this is things that are more outside the box. Now we're focusing on the demonstrations you can do inside the venue, is what we have here. Again, this is just a crop of the floor plan that I showed before. And you see in orange is the area for exhibitions outside. It's around 20 by 50 meters, so around 1,000 square meters. And the area inside in pink, which is the area which has around 700 square meters for the exhibition. And they are next to one another. So it's a setting that works well and easily. And again, as I said, the first deadline just for you to submit your expression of interest is in the 31st of March. You have here the contact if you have any questions. So if you would like to present your exhibitions, use this form to express your for this first deadline, and so we can go from there, and hopefully we're going to have different demonstrators in the conference. And that was it from my part. And I hope to see you all in TRA 2020 and lots of associations, companies, research institutes in our exhibition. Looking forward to receive your applications. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luís. Thank you very much for this very comprehensive presentation. I would like to ask if there's any question from the participants or the audience. Any points to clarify? No? Okay. So thank you so much. I will now ask Zissis Samaras. As I said, he is the vice chairman of ERTRAC, and I will ask him to tell us a bit about your organization and what you will be doing for TRA. Can you hear me?
I can, and I hope that you can hear me too.
And I can, yeah.
If you can see me too.
Yeah, and you can see your slides as well.
Okay.
Not you, but your slides.
Okay, I think this is more important. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Teresa. Thank you very much for the invitation for this short webinar that will give me the opportunity to talk a little bit about our platform, the European Road Transport Research Advisory Council. And my main topic of the short presentation will be the research fields of ERTRAC in relation to TRA 2022. But first, a few words about ERTRAC, at least for those who are not aware. I think we are one of the oldest technology platforms in Europe. It was set up, if I'm not mistaken, at the beginning of 2000s, actually more than 20 years old, and which is a multi-stakeholder platform that includes the industry, both the OEMs and the supplying industry, as well as research institutions, universities, different associations, and as well as public authorities from the European, the national, and the local levels. ERTRAC is a very firm supporter of TRA and TRA2022 in particular. And why is that so? Of course, because TRA is fully in line with, I don't know if you can see me actually. I'm sorry for.
Yes, we can.
Because I see only myself right now.
Yeah, but that's okay. Don't worry. Don't worry.
I don't.
Everybody sees you. Everybody sees you.
The problem is I cannot see my slides. This is my only problem.
Yeah, we're seeing your slides. Yeah, you cannot see them. Okay.
I cannot see my slides, yeah, for some reason, because something changed suddenly. I don't know if I have to do something. I'm sorry for this, or if the technical persons can help me in this.
Do you have the application open fully, and maybe you can try to turn
I hope I'm okay now. I hope everything is okay.
Yeah, but Zissis cannot see them, so it's a bit confusing. I understand.
No, now I can. Now I can. I can only see my slides, so I think I can continue.
Very good.
I think I pressed something. Okay, sorry for this. So ERTRAC was a strong supporter of the TRA since its beginning. And why is that so? Because TRA is fully in line with ERTRAC's approach, in particular as regards the various research stakeholders from across Europe, but also because the multimodal dimension of the conference is also an opportunity for us, and in particular for our research communities, to discuss the research and innovation trends and to look at different synergies across the different topics and fields. I think it will be interesting to share with you the main ideas that govern the main research fields of ERTRAC as they are reflected in the so-called working groups of the platform. And as you will be seeing, it will be clear that the program of TRA is fully in line and matches fully our expectations. And I really hope that we will be in the position to, again, I have the same problem, sorry. That's why I don't know what I have to do not to repeat this problem. Teresa, I'm sorry again. I don't know, because I see I press this and I see my slides change.
Can you see it now?
No.
You're at the end of your presentation, I think.
Yes, but this is by mistake. I don't know what is going on. Suddenly, I lose control and I see myself, I see you, I don't see, the slides are, let me try something else here. Okay, sorry. I don't know how many times this will happen. I hope that's the last time. No, it happened again. But I think I found the solution. So the main areas include energy and environment, urban mobility, connected and automated mobility, road safety, freight and logistics, and global competitiveness of Europe. I guess one topic that I think ERTRAC is behind it and very much supporting it. As regards the energy and environment research topic, I think this was already touched upon by many. We know what are the big challenges that we are faced with currently. And in addition to electrification of road transport, seeing from the point of view of the vehicle, ERTRAC is also looking at other sustainable energies and powertrains, not only looking at the green electricity, but also looking at other renewable energy carriers, including e-fuels and others. So hydrogen, synthetic gasoline, diesel, and others are also in the scope of ETRA, in addition to electrification. Everything towards a climate neutral road transport by 2050. We have a particular interest on urban mobility, since urban mobility represents currently almost 50% of the total mileage that takes place in Europe, and this is expected to further grow as urban areas increase. So the integration of new technologies and the new mobility services in the system is one pillar, while the urban mobility resilience is a second pillar that emerged from the crisis of COVID-19, and the lessons learned from this crisis are being considered in order to bring in other potential disruptive technologies that can make us better prepared for additional crises of the same type in the future. The other extremely important part that is driving ERTRAC related research is, of course, the connected, cooperative, and automated mobility. There is a big boom, as you do all know, in this area that is expected to play a very important role in the very near future, and we are looking at all various application domains and use cases, with a particular focus on enablers. So how to validate, how to define and determine the infrastructure needs, the technology enablers, how to deploy artificial intelligence and big data analysis in order to guide connected mobility. These are some of the important topics and words that are being constantly used in this area. Road safety is something which is definitely related with connected and automated driving. As a matter of fact, we can say that automated connected driving started from the need to enhance the road safety and the safety of the existing vehicles and infrastructure. However, in addition to all the topics that are connected with the automated driving, there are the shorter term needs that need to be addressed. So we do look at all phases, from preventive to a post-crash safety issues. And our main focus is really into a safe system approach. Freight and logistics, I think this is a topic that Fernando Liesa, our good colleague and friend, will talk a bit more, since this is being done in full cooperation with Alice, with a multimodal vision. But we try to take a look at the impacts of the major trends on freight and logistics, including digitalization and automation, electrification, carbon neutrality. This is basically our main target from ERTRAC's point of view, in a very good interface with Alice, and of course all topics related with the so-called physical internet, new business models, resilience of the supply chains are also part of our activities. Finally, last but not least, global competitiveness of Europe is a working group and a research topic that we believe it is of high interest for the European research ecosystem in general. The question is, what is the European position and the research and development challenges related with the critical materials and components? How do we introduce life cycle assessment in a standardized way with standardized approaches and methodologies well-founded on scientific knowledge is one of the important topics that is being discussed and being promoted by ERTRAC. in addition to more standard, if you wish, activities, including competitiveness of manufacturing and supply chain, as well as the education and the evolution of skills that are absolutely necessary if we want to keep the automotive industry as competitive as it is, and also support all these advanced mobility services that are being discussed for the near future. And with this, I think I would like to thank you very much for your attention. And of course, I'm open for discussion. I'm really sorry for the small interruptions that I had in between.
Thank you, Zissis. Thank you so much. Those things happen most of the time, as you know. It's very practical to have these sort of meetings, but unfortunately, that's the way it is. Anyway, we should be grateful to have them anyway. Thank you so much for your presentation, very comprehensive. Let me just ask you one question. ERTRAC is a really multi-stakeholder organization, and as you showed us, it covers a very large spectrum of mobility areas. But Europe, and your organization is really European, and there is a great diversity in regional, national, European situations, and not everywhere, but also in when it comes to urban mobility, which you pointed out a few times. Do you think that research could bring common solutions to address new mobility in Europe? Meaning, is European research, can it be applied? Can it come up with solutions that are, you know, can be used at regional, national level, or you have to pick different situations? This is what I mean. We want to be European, but Europe is very diverse.
Diverse, yes. Thank you, Teresa. I think this is an extremely important question. I think, and this, of course, is being discussed and tried to be addressed also in the framework of our association, and not only. I think there are two answers in this question. One is the very technical answer. We do need common standards, first of all, in order to produce products and devices and machines that could be equally used across Europe, if possible, but also tailored in such a way as to serve the needs, the diverse needs of the continent. So how do we manage the whole thing here? Well, this I don't think there is a unique answer for everything. I think that from an industrial point of view, things need to be as standardized as possible and as unified as possible. But from a usage point of view, and maybe from an application point of view, things should be able to be diversified and adapted to the particular situations. This is the reason why ERTRAC also encompasses not only the industry, but also member states, as well as member states research organizations are represented in ERTRAC, in addition, of course, to the European Commission, which is mostly represented by DG Research, as you might expect in DG Move. And this is in an attempt really to look at topics such as mobility per se, or even competitiveness, how these topics can be served, how can they be better served by the research activities that take place at more technology level. There is no unique answer. It is being taken into account. We try really to address that, but I believe that there is a very long road ahead.
Thank you so much. We'll probably come back to that. Thank you for your answer. And I will now ask Steve Phillips, who is, as we said, the Secretary General of CEDR. CEDR is, as you also know, the Confederation of European Directors of Roads. So, Steve, please tell us a bit about CEDR.
Thank you very much, Teresa. I'm going to take the easy way. I'm very glad that I asked the organisers to run my slides, because then it takes away a bit of that that stress. So my heart went out to Zissis, and I'm sorry for that. But I think it's good to take this moment actually to thank Zissis for representing ERTRAC, because as he said, I think, you know, CEDR and ERTRAC were the initiators of TRA in the first place, and I think, you know, the last 20 years of cooperation have been very productive, and I think, you know, we're very grateful that continues and will continue to deepen in the future. So yes, CEDR is the Conference of European Directors of Roads, which is kind of what it says on the tin, as you might expect. It's an organization that is representing or bringing together the road directors from across the whole of Europe. These are the general directors, the CEOs, the people who are actually managing the day-to-day the road networks right across the continent of Europe. So I've been asked to come here and talk about, you know, advancing European industry with TRA2022. And as I say, despite saying yes, we've cooperated with ERTRAC over the last 20 years, you might be saying, well, what on earth have the road authorities got to do with advancing European industry? You know, what do road authorities do for competitiveness? Well, hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll appreciate that actually the competitiveness is an absolutely not only a key function of road administrations, but in many respects, it's almost a fundamental part of their reason for being in the first place. Because I think we can all recognize without roads, you know, we would not have a competitive continent. You know, if you think about it, there is probably not a single road built anywhere where you don't first do a cost-benefit analysis. And of course, a huge part of that cost-benefit analysis is always what is its contribution to the economy, and particularly when we're taking into account the support for local industry. So you can see, you know, it's very much in the blood. It may not be apparent when you think about a road authority. Well, they're just the boring guys who keep the roads open. But why are we keeping the roads open? And what are the roads there for in the first place? So let's, if I may, you know, take a bit of time just to talk about, you know, what CEDR is, and again, what draw the links and the parallels with why we're here today. So if I can have the next slide. I'm hoping the next slide will come. No, see, oh yes, okay. So there we go. So the goals of CEDR. So these are, these are the strategic objectives of CEDR. And just to run through, you know, the key four of them and why they're here. So the very first one, which is embedded in our, is you know, keeping NRAs, National Road Administrations, ahead of the curve to anticipate future trends and prepare them for the new challenges. And this, of course, is, you know, encompasses issues not only in terms of the technology, but also many of the things that Zissis has also talked about, also in terms of, you know, how it influences future legislation, because technology is also often framed in a context where you know, the technology, if you like, drives a lot of the legislation. So you can understand that, you know, there's a clear link there, and that was one of the key activities, key reasons for us supporting, indeed coming up with the concept of what the TRA was in the first place. The second one, reinforce the NRA's roles as key and efficient providers of efficient and seamless mobility from the end user perspective within the transport system. Again, you know, you can't really say that without thinking about the influence on competitiveness. How do we ensure that roads really do play their role in a day-to-day fashion? Next one is facilitating and optimizing the best efficient use of resources, making the best use of existing infrastructures. So this is very much the day-to-day, you know, the caretaker activity. But again, you know, I think Zissis already talked around issues such as standardization. I think we've moved away, even in the last 20 years, you know, we've seen a change. We've moved away from the situation where roads could largely be built, you know, from the resources, from the materials, from the technologies that could come from one single country. You know, now we have a much more integrated market, much of this, particularly the high-tech technology, the infrastructure that goes into our thing, you know, has to be developed by organizations that work across borders. So, you know, in terms of, you know, having an interest in a competitive market, that can work across those borders, then can provide, let's face it, not only high tech and efficient stuff, but also as cheap as possible, please, because we are responsible for spending the taxpayers' money. So it's in all of our interests, as I say, that we have competitive companies who can deliver good products across the borders and have a reasonable size of market. Again, I would link this, also with the innovation activity. Number of times that we've talked with industry partners over the years, and they will, for example, talk about their research and development and how doing research development from their perspective for one country does not make sense. They want to do research and development where they know they have a market, and that market often means, certainly, a number of countries putting together, if not the whole of Europe, working together. So just to encourage and open up in many respects the investment that goes into research is important, that we can actually present to the sector, actually we're an integrated market, and and please come, and it won't just be one country that will buy and you lose your money. This is a group of countries will be lining up to support that. And the final of our objectives is, again, we hear this many times, but it's good to keep banging the drum and keep saying it. Improving the safety. Again, that's where I would say the cooperation with ERTRAC is very important, and the work on safety they've been done. The sustainability of roads, and increasingly important is I think it's always been important, is the environmental impact. There's a lot of aspects there, and again, if I can just talk about what we've as CEDR presented over the years on environment. You've seen everything from air quality, from noise, biodiversity, habitat fragmentation, a lot of the issues to do with climate change adaptation and things like that. And then of course that leads us on to the very an important and growing topic is the carbon footprint. And there, of course, we need to understand how we can reduce the carbon footprint, and of course that's a very urgent task, because the alarm bells are ringing, and they really are ringing. This is something we need to get to move on. But just going back to the concept of sustainability, if I can have my next slide, and I'm hoping this comes up. Okay, this is good. Well, I should let you into a secret. I'm actually in Geneva at the moment. I was with the UN ECE yesterday, and I will be with them again this afternoon, talking about connected and automated vehicles. But one of the very important things we've come from the United Nations is, of course, the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. And when people talk about sustainability, it's very much, there's a lot of circles now where it's very much associated with just the environment, and it's climate change, and of course those are very important. But we shouldn't lose sight of the fact there are actually 17 SDGs, and some of the very important ones. And again, I would really stress, how important that CEDR sees these are issues like decent work and economic growth. That is a United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. The support for industry, innovation, and infrastructure, another one. So you can see how, when we talk about sustainability, actually it goes much further than what we often hear in some of these conferences. So that's one of the things I think we would really like to bring to this TRA, to start stressing, and I hope that will underline why it is important that we do want to work with industry on this. If I can have my next slide. So, yeah, how do we increase sustainability? And this is a chart, and I don't know how much of it you can see, because it depends, of course, which screen you're watching on. Maybe you're watching it on a massive screen and you can see it really easy. Maybe you're watching on a small one. So let me just try and explain what this is. So effectively, what we've got, and you will have seen these a lot of times. And if you think back into the old days when we used to talk about decoupling, decoupling was very much the topic when we talked right at the beginning of TRA. How do we decouple transport growth from GDP or societal prosperity? Because in the past we've always seen those two lines have grown together. over the last 20 years, many people have patted themselves on the back. Oh, hey, great, we've achieved decoupling. And it's not happening anymore. Yes, to a large extent we have, and certainly if we look at this chart, we can see issues how there's a slide there on the mobility of people, and there's a line there of the mobility of vehicles, which we hope is largely starting to flatten off. And then we've got the bottom line, which is the environmental impact, which again we hope, whilst the transport system is growing and is getting busier and busy, yes, the environment has suffered, but now I think we can see the tide is turning, and I hope the environmental impact will decrease. Now, what I see is important of this, in the little, if you like, the triangles. The top one is about avoid. So this is, how do we avoid the need for mobility and yet still provide support for societal prosperity and economic growth? A lot of this, we're doing that today in many respects. We're exchanging ideas through the internet, and we're not traveling to our different meetings. So that's why it becomes increasingly important that we consider the telecom sectors and other sectors in this whole concept of what we mean by mobility. Then we've got shift, and shift has, okay, maybe shift to other modes, but also shift within the modes. And I think that's something we really want to stress. I mean, maybe Fernando can talk about it later, but when we talk about freight transport, and there's a lot of terrible figures, some scary figures that people talk about, the impact of freight transport. But what people actually often fail to realize is the number of studies that the carbon impact of, for example, the food you buy in your supermarkets, it's almost as much as driving it back from the supermarket as it was for the whole supply chain to actually get it, for it to get to the supermarket in the first place. So again, I think we're often overemphasizing, if you like, the environmental impact, and certainly the CO2 impact of the whole logistics chains, because they're very efficient. And then the final one at the moment is is how we improve the technologies that go into the system. So my final slide, I think, if I've counted correctly, last slide. So this is the one that wraps it up. What are the TR objectives? And this is the slide, as we say, we go back over the, back to 2006, when it was just CEDR together with ERTRAC and the European Commission, and we have the first, and we've developed over the different years. So why is it there? I mean, so TRA embeds many of CEDR's objectives for how we work this. If you see the little diagram at the bottom, the first one is common strategic stakeholder engagement. So the point is, if you want to engage with the road authorities, TRA is the place to come to, because it is the tech platforms that we are talking to. Then we have issues about the implementation, and I guess just to underline what Zissis has talked about, we're talking about common professional competence development. So again, it's about the people, it's about the skills, and it's about how both the public sector and the private sector work together to build up those skills. So I hope with that, that's given you enough incentive to come to Lisbon, if it's not just for the nice wine.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much. Very, very interesting presentation. Very broad as well. Just a couple of things. You mentioned the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. We could add one thing, which is the European Development Goal, and that's cohesion. Right? And I think that would be also something interesting. But my question was not that one. My question was, you showed the slide with the previous TRAs, and if I could read well, because I have to come closer, there has the Lisbon TRA in 2022 will be the 9th conference, and of course, even during those years, there's lots of things that have happened, that have changed, that have accelerated. But as you said earlier on, as one of the initiators of TRA, what were the lessons from previous conferences for industry, for example? How will TRA 2022 will be different?
How will well, at the end of the day, I mean, TRA 2022 is building on the others. So you will see that progressive, and I hope see that progressive alignment between the different sectors. So over the years, for example, we've seen increased multimodality in there, and you know, we're very happy to see the other tech platforms represented in the other modes, as well as ECTP representing the construction sector. So we've seen that, you know, that broadening, that steady broadening of the stakeholders that need to be involved. What's different, I think, yeah, well, you know, is the question of the technology. You know, we've seen very much how the technology has been adapted. And again, it's not technology development, but how society has embraced the technology over the last 2 years, which we're doing that now. So how do we, you know, engage more with the other sectors in terms of what I would call the alternatives to mobility? So I would say they're part of the transport system, but they're alternatives to mobility. There is the question of how we work better with the telecom sectors and the energy sectors. Absolutely vital that we need to work forward. And I think the other thing that's also different, and again, I'm looking forward to Fernando's input on this, is the concept of shortening our supply chains and the reindustrialization of Europe. Because when I talk about, you know, the decoupling of transport and economic growth, I think the question is how much of that is because we've outsourced, you know, outside Europe, and now the political imperative is to bring that back into Europe. So are we going to see a reversal and a recoupling, and how do we avoid that? So how do we better plan our system for the future?
Okay, thank you so much, and Fernando will certainly talk about those issues as well, but we will now move to Armando Carrillo from ETRA. Armando, may I ask you to be, you know, 7 minutes or so we will have time for further discussion. It's already almost noon. Okay.
Absolutely, no problem. Thank you very much. And I'm going to do a presentation. From the presentation of Phillips, they were one of the, together with ERTRAC, the creators or the impulser of the conference, and we, ETRA, is the last but not least joining the TRA as association. So myself, I am the Secretary General of ERTRAC, which is like the railway part of ETRA, and ETRA is an alliance of 5 associations which represent the academics, universities, and research centers. So we're representing a part of this non-profit research entities, which are specialized in different parts. So our idea is to ally together and to express opinions and support the unified research space across the European Union. I would like to present briefly the associations getting together in ETRA, and starting by ECTRI, which is the European Conference of Transport Research Institutes. They tackle the part of multimodal transport, so it includes road, rail, aviation, maritime, etc. And so they have different missions, well, cooperation among members and providing advice for the decision makers, and as well effectiveness of the research, and of course networking among the members and the industry together. This for ECTRI. Euronext is the association that I represent. It's like 35 European universities, and we are specialized in mobility, but specifically in rail. And I must say that rail is by default multimodal. So we have almost the same objectives as ECTRI, so facilitate the implementation of joint projects, connect our members with industry, with SMEs, and also advise the different entities at European level, namely ERTRAC or Shift to Rail, is in past Shift to Rail, now ERGU, and also participating in TRA, and of course network. This is Euronext, and then we have FERL, which is also integrating in ERTRAC, which is the Forum of the Highway Research Laboratories. This is fundamentally addressing the part of the construction, maintaining, and the commissioning, etc., where it refers to physical infrastructure. The missions are pretty the same, or with different slightly modification as the ones of ETRA and ERTRAC. However, this is more bound to infrastructure and basically as well networking, participation in projects, advice for agendas, and the like. Then another member of ETRA is Fersi. This is directed, is well known by our colleagues today, of the European Road Safety Institutes, and they have as well, they congregate as well other parties that are responsible of this particular item, which is the safety of the roads, and they have to develop these safety topics in the European research agenda, one of the main activities of this association. Then last but not least, we have the humanist, which is dealing specifically on the human factor in transport. And this also addresses the multimodal aspect, roads and rail, and also the maritime. And basically, it's all same, similar research and activities, targeting as well the networking, the inclusion into the agendas, and the supporting of the research in that area. ETRA as a whole have so we gather together in order to share between us the different aspects that are important for our agenda. So we put in common our worries, how the researchers could be better considered and better integrated in what is the European research area. We also launched some common papers, and we organized common activities, like, for example, the Young Research Seminar. And we support the TRA conference, participating in the management committee, suggesting speakers from the academics, of course, and raising the scientific quality of this conference, promoting the call of papers, inviting our members to submit the papers and the research output in the conference, and as well contributing to the program committee, organizing sessions and feeding them with the academics, and also, of course, the review that it reaches the necessary scientific level. And that is my presentation. I hope it was as short as you expected. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I really appreciate one of your topics that I hope will come up in the discussion later on, and it's the human factor in transport. And the title of your the organization, Humanist. I think that's very, very good. But that's not. I wanted to ask you. ETRA is say an association of, or an entity that brings together academic and research centers. And
right.
You also have, you mentioned it, a young researcher seminar within your activities. Is the transport industry attractive to young people and young researchers?
Yes, it is at different levels and different modes of transport. I must say there are some modes of transport that are more attractive to young researchers because they have like better promotion, or they are more hype, and then they join that. But we are going to the direction is to attract youngs in a general transport concept, not for just for roads, or just for aviation, or just for hyperloop, or just for rail, which is one of the least attractive right now, rail, because it reminds us old and so. But we're working together to consider transport as a whole a specialty, and get young people involved into that. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good luck with that. Thank you very much. Now, last but not least, Fernando Liesa, who is the Secretary General of ALICE, the technology platform for logistics. So, Fernando, you are the last one.
Okay, I think you can see my screen now, and you can hear me and you can see me. So I hope everything goes well with the presentation. Thank you very much, Teresa, for the introduction, and also for having invited Alice to be in this webinar with our colleagues that are together organizing this event in Lisbon in November. Alice, as European Technology Platform, as you mentioned at the beginning, Teresa, was actually one of the newest technology platform, and we started participating in TRA in an active role since Poland and Vienna. Then we had the issues with COVID in Helsinki, and now we are heading to Lisbon and Portugal, and we have also grown a lot in these years, and we truly believe TRA is the place to be for the research and innovation stakeholders, the companies in transportation, because as you can see today, we have all the perspectives from the different transport modes, from the infrastructure, from the policy at different levels, national, European, regional, also the infrastructure that is really critical. And this provides essential outlook of what's going on in this innovation area, and particular for companies now, they are looking ahead into the future, how they can deal with all these challenges, and transportation is more and more relevant. So let me first do a short introduction of ALICE. ALICE is the Alliance for Logistics Innovation through Collaboration in Europe. We try to be the glue between the transportation modes and the users of these transportation modes for freight transport and logistics, and this means retailers, shippers, logistics service providers. We are currently more than 540 different persons that are involved in the different activities in ALICE through our membership, and we were created as a non-for-profit association based in Brussels 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago. Here you have a representation of the companies that are working in ALICE, and as you can see, we have a very broad representation of the different types of stakeholders in freight transport and logistics, and this always gives us a very holistic overview when we discuss topics on freight transport, logistics, supply chains, because you can see in the approaches that these are different. So then this is essentially giving us a very holistic view from the user side, and also provide us a very interesting base to discuss with the different transportation modes, the infrastructure, the commission, and the different stakeholders in TRA, which is really critical and very important for us. At the end, with this, what we are in ALICE we have European leading companies and experts in implementing logistics and supply chain innovation, and these are our members that are leading this transition. As ALICE, we can only support them, and actually what we do through ALICE is really discuss on the new concepts, how we need to look into the future, which are the main trends, which are the main challenges. Is the future of freight transport and logistics be the same or similar to what we have now, or we will go to completely different paradigms? Then based on that, we define research and innovation roadmaps, and we try to influence particularly industry to move fast to the decarbonization and being more efficient. And in order to do that, we have a very extensive knowledge base based on the expertise and experience of our members that are sharing with us, but also because we have more than 50 research and innovation projects liaised with ALICE that are supporting and sharing the results to our network. And last but not least, enabling collaboration. This the challenges that we are facing, even the biggest companies that we have in our portfolio of members always tell the same. We cannot address these challenges alone. We need to work and address them in collaboration, and that's what we also try to do through ALICE. And the mission is really to accelerate decarbonization and trying to do it in an affordable way that it's really critical. So then what is and will be heavily influencing transport and technologies. We are looking into the TRA, and most of the times we see a lot of technology push from the different transportation modes, different technologies, and sometimes we need to look also in the perspective, because at the end, transportation is not an end goal. We need transportation for moving people, for moving goods, to get access to those goods. And then there are many other aspects outside transport that are influencing transport. And here, for example, we have COVID, and we had a lot of disturbances because of COVID, but then it depends also on different waves we can see in economic cycles and climate change. And actually here we see even still emission trading system is not applied to the most transportation. We can see this graph how much the cost of CO2 emissions grew in the last couple of years. And of course, this may lead us that maybe transportation could be much more expensive in future, and this provides different angle to look into the transport. Then, of course, there are many other different aspects like we need to address, like tracking shortages. I think most of the people is very complex for companies really to find truck drivers, particularly for long distance freight transport. We have disturbances in the freight transport and the supply chains. For example, chip shortages was creating a lot of disruptions in all supply chains, and that had an impact on transport. We see, and this is coming to the one of the comments from Steve on terms of redefining supply chains. We have seen that the rates of container freight from Asia to Europe has been multiplied by 10, and it's still be there, and then it may be here to stay with us. So then all this is indeed in the heads of the companies that need to develop the different freight transport and supply chains, and think where to position the different facilities from manufacturing to consumption. And of course, also on e-commerce, that as also mentioned by Steve, with e-commerce, part of the transportation chain that we used to do ourselves, to access the goods in the shops and wherever, is now done privately by companies that probably, if they can, they could do it much more efficient than ourselves going for the goods to the restaurants or to the different shops. So here, what we see, and one of our main comments when we discuss in TRA is really, when we look into the future, we usually try or tend to look too much into the past, and then we cannot build the future only thinking into the past, only thinking future will be the same as we have now, but maybe with electric trucks or hydrogen trucks, or really more sophisticated automated terminals for rail freight, or transportation modes, or more connected and autonomous. All these trends and technologies will influence basically the paradigm and the mobility and logistics change. And particularly in this case, we need to be very fast moving, because we don't have so much time. Here, I will not explain in detail, but this is an extract of one of the main professors in freight transport logistics, Mr. Alan McKinnon, that always has very good grounds, and this is taken from one of his presentations, even though the sources are different. We see that with the current trend, in 8 or 10 years, we exhaust the emissions and the carbon budget to be in the 1.5 degrees for climate change. So then it's really critical what we do in the next 10 years. And this is what is important here. So then also what we see from our side is that we are looking into the pace the technologies developed and the economical market development, and we see there is a very important gap between what is available from a technology point of view and what is needed, and then what is feasible from an economic point of view. So then there is a huge amount of innovation really needed, and here we think truly that is the innovation not only on the technologies or the vehicles or the infrastructure, but also on the the pure logistics and models and all that. Here is a very busy slide. I will not go into the detail, but it's more representing the different roadmaps. And we have three main research and innovation roadmaps. The first one that we released just the day before of the Green Deal was published is the roadmap towards zero emissions logistics. And this is driven actually our main agenda in ALICE, and we see a lot of these contents already presented today, but also in TRA, and for example, how to manage the freight demand growth and how transport modes are smartly used and combined. Then really looking into the inefficiencies we have, still we see fleets and assets are not properly used and could be very used through sharing. And last but not least, how we can transition the assets. And here we also see there is a lot of effort in transitioning the assets, but to make this affordable, we need to make a better use of these assets, infrastructure, energies, and that's what we convey in our roadmap to the physical internet, so then we can really, as you can see in the picture, make a proper use of the transportation modes. And then we have our area focus area on urban freight and logistics that we do together with Polis, that is also part of many of the organizations, and we have different thematic groups. Here is also very busy, but I'll not explain in detail, but you can see more the topics that we are addressing and that are interesting, and most of them will be part of the TRA. You can see the different thematic groups and different activity fields with there and the different transversal areas. And as you can see here, TRA is one of our main conference, and the main conference for ALICE during 2022, in which we plan to really use to convey these communities or activity fields and try to gather them there in Lisbon. And last but not least, I invite all of you to join in our booth. We'll be there, and we will also influence or try to get our thoughts into the different sessions, and it will be a very good place to have discussions with us and also with the rest of stakeholders and our members. And also what we plan to convey there is most of the projects that are liaised with ALICE that can have a good representation and share through the TRA their main innovations, propositions for the future and all that. And this is on my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I was looking at Michelangelo. Thank you, Fernando. Yeah, you mentioned that there is a gap between what is available and what is possible, and then in your slide that converges to action plans. Is it only action plans? Because also in your website, one of your roadmaps, I think you mentioned that 10 to 30% improvement in the EU logistics sector would potentially equal to 100 or 300 billion costs relief for the European industry, and that's really very impressive. So, you're talking about action plans, to fill up this gap, but what is preventing this cost relief, or at least minimizing, reducing it? Surely everybody would like to embrace this reduction. What is preventing?
Thank you very much, Teresa, for this very important question. And actually, here the answer is that at the end, these big amounts come from millions of inefficiencies, as freight transport and logistics is a very fragmented sector. Maybe it's 10% of the GDP, but this is coming from millions of hundreds of thousands of companies, and all these companies have their own way of working, their own ideas, their own ways of, and particularly this creates that even the biggest companies we have in ALICE, they realize most of the times there are inefficiencies in the freight transport and logistics supply chains because they don't have the volumes to really connect, and then it's very hard for them to collaborate, because at the end there are many barriers preventing collaboration. And here we mentioned one is the WAS standards, but also is how you can really create and make it simple to share resources and infrastructures. So then here, what is preventing really is that there is a lot of fragmentation, there is a lot of customization of freight transport and logistics, actually a lot of rigidity in the supply chains, and this is creating difficulties to make a proper use of the assets and services. So we see as also one of the problems is that in most of the cases the transition cost, so then transitioning to a more efficient situation, the cost and managing this is so complex that companies prefer to deal with the cost. It's even more efficient for them from a cost perspective to remain inefficient that to transition, because it's also very, very complex. And that's why we are looking into this concept of the physical internet, in which you can really share and build your supply chains and can really share different capabilities in the supply chain and really make it easier to share, easier to work with others. And this is the main goal and the main barrier, and that's why we are so much pushing for this concept of the physical internet, really to make it much more easy for companies to really become efficient and also pay for the transition on the assets and energies towards zero emission logistics.
Thank you, Fernando. We have covered so much until now. And before I get back to you, let me just ask the audience if there is any question that they would like to convey to you. If no, there isn't. Let me then come back to Armando. Because Armando, you represent the scientific community, and we know that research is needed to support policy decisions. But can the scientific community or the research community be a sort of mediator between industry and policymakers? Can TRA, that surely will bring together those three important stakeholders, can TRA move on and really get to this dialogue that scientific community, research community could moderate or mediate? Because you have industry on one side and you have policymakers on the other.
Yes, thank you for the question. Really important. The scientific community can only intermediate when this is when there is a will from both parties. So it is like this. Normally, the European public sector, say the Commission, it's the one interested in that the scientific community gets involved into that, and by creating laws or policies, force that the scientific community takes this role. This is also can be the scientific community or academics taking some role when the industry. But this is normally motivated by increasing the revenues or increasing the presence of the industry because of the nature of the industry, and we are in the middle of this area. It could actually work, and there are some platforms which give an important role to the scientific community. We hear today a representative or vice chairman of ERTRAC scientific community taking this role, which is very important for I think for the public society, because they, in some words, they don't have nothing to say. It's normally a non-profit role. So I believe it's the right mediator, and therefore I think the opinion of the scientific community, or at least the one that I represent, it's very important for that area. But always, we are always have to be invited by the public sector.
Yeah, but nevertheless, it's industry most of the time who will implement those policies.
Yes, of course. It's always like a discussion, but it's necessary to have. Sometimes the scientific community brings into the table subjects that may not be in line what the industry wants, may put subjects that are uncomfortable, and it's the scientific community the one that has brought the climate change issue on the table and has been putting it all the time into the and this is normally detecting problems before the impacts into the what is in the accounts of the industry. So that's how it works.
Thank you, because we're talking industry here, and I think let me based a bit on this. Let me go back to Zissis. In 2 years' time, there will be another version of TRA. How do you think it will talk about TRA 2022? What would be the legacy for the next conference? And again, TRA 2022, it's about moving together. So again, together is all the stakeholders in transport. It's the research, it's the academia, but it's industry very much so, and policy and policy makers. So what would be the legacy for the next conference? Sorry. Then what would you like it to be?
Yeah, I truly believe, and I think this was raised already, I truly believe that the major challenge that the planet actually is faced with is climate change, whatever we say. And the question is if some of the responses we are currently planning, and you heard some of them, are sufficient. And if they will not only be sufficient, but they will also be effective. So from this point of view, I think moving together towards a climate neutral Europe for 2050 maybe should be considered as a possibility for 2024, actually, to be even more prominent in the header of TRA. Because I do believe, honestly believe, that what we have to do is really change at different levels. Technology has to be reinvented, and new things have to be again brought on the table. But also processes such as logistics need to be revisited and optimized. Everything has to be reviewed in a way as that we are effective and efficient and reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but also keep our industry alive, keep our economy going. I think this is a very, very difficult equation, as you may expect. And it cannot happen overnight. It needs time and it needs commitment. But at the same time, as all these threats, it presents us a big opportunity for Europe and for us. So I think I said too many things, but I believe the message is there. And there is a very big responsibility of the research community really to bring those topics forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Zissis. Steve, would you agree with that? Would you have something to add?
Well, you kind of put me on the spot. Yeah, you kind of put me on the spot, because I guess since you're asking, no, I'm not sure I do agree with that to the extent that it's being presented. In the sense, I mean, I think we've already shown we don't need intermediaries to talk with industry. So the public and the industry can talk together. And as you will see with Zissis, yes, there is a close cooperation, I think, between industry and their research providers. But I think the second point is also, if you consider in many respects that the research community is also a part of industry. And I think that's something that's very, very strong for CEDR as well. In our own research program, we are very keen on opening up the market and encouraging competition between different research providers. So this idea that there is one section that somehow acts as the intermediary and preferred advisors. I'm not sure that really reflects the modern world. But let's discuss these in Lisbon.
Okay. I wouldn't want to get nobody into trouble here, but I think it's important that, again, let me emphasize this. This is about moving together. We don't have much time now to continue discussing this collaboration as the name of the game, because there is, before we leave, there is a question from the public about Hyperloop. So it's in the chat. Question. Yeah. Oh, the questions. Yeah. Okay. The chat. Sorry, I cannot. Let me just ask here. Can you give us the question, please, and so we can see who is going to answer it?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay. So the question is, where does the sound? Okay.
Could you hear it? No.
Well,
Could you hear?
I'm sorry, I was completely in the blank. I couldn't hear anything.
Well, I'm sorry. I cannot bring the question to you because I
Okay,
cannot.
I will read it out if you can hear me.
Now, yes.
Where does the fifth transport mode pipeline fit into TRA, particularly capsule-in pipelines like Omniloop and Hyperloop? Maybe Armando could reply.
Armando?
yes. Well, we're dealing here in TRA with modes of transport that are actually producing traffic, surface traffic. As far as we know, these modes of transport are not providing a substantial amount of traffic, and therefore, for the moment, they are just on the, let's say, blue sky research aspect, and they are not for the moment considered as a fifth mode of transport. When they start to be a reality, they will be integrated and for sure taken in account. This is a personal opinion from my side. Does not represent ETRA because there's no infrastructure being built actually in Europe for that, and there's not actually happening. This is more for policy or industry. If there is an investment in that mode of transport, then there will be room.
Okay. Thank you. You, believe it or not, I had 9 more issues to discuss with you. We are approaching the time to leave you. I want to thank you so much for this, which I thought was interesting conversation, but much was left to be touched upon and to be discussed. But this is why we have TRA in a few months. And
Exactly.
hope to see you all there and many more. And I do hope that the 9 issues that I didn't bring up will be dealt there. And in the meantime, I wish you a very, very good rest of the day. And thank you so much for your participation and for being also quite lively. Thank you so much. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you very much, Teresa, and everyone.
Thank you,
very
Teresa.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.